Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be discussing another delta-rune theory, or well, expanding on a theory that I had previously. So let's dive into it. Originally, back when chapter 3 and 4 came out, I had a theory. Theory being that the Roaring Knight, the main antagonist of Deltarune, as it seems to do at this point, was actually an amalgamate, and you know that was my entire theory back then. But since then, I have expanded on that theory a little, and a few weeks ago, while I was scrolling on Twitter, I came across this post by this user whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce because I am probably going to mispronounce it. Every net candidate theory has to explain how they do all that, by the way. All that refers into them opening their chest up like this, whatever the hell they do in this image, and turning into a bird. This is probably a bird, by the way. Anyway, again, since I had my own theory at this point, I decided to join in on the fun. And my theory was this: the knight is an amalgamate made from the dust of all the monsters in the graveyard. The bird part is explained by Snowdrake's mom, Crystal, I believe the name was, who is a bird, and their feral aspects like drooling. The night, drools when you first see them in chapter 3. They do it right after, murdering Tena, basically, by the way. That I believe was explained by the dog monster Muttler, whose name I explained, no, whose name I misspelled here. It is spelled with two T's. And Shiren's sister, Shira, I initially believed wasn't involved in this process. But again, we'll get to that. And at least the way I see it, I thought that Gerson was never even buried to begin with, based on what Alvin says in chapter 2. He mumbles to himself and all of that. And of course, because this is a night theory, I believe that this December holiday was also involved in this, because both chapter 2 and the Spampton sweepstakes mention the dreamers and the holidays. I mean the children, by the way, not the adult dreamers and holidays. Chris, Azrael, Noel, and December, obviously, all of them used to hang out either in or near the graveyard. It's been, mentioned at least two different occasions, so there's an established connection right there. So again, I thought that Des was involved because, again, otherwise, Carol's involvement wouldn't make sense either. Initially, that was the whole theory, but as you can see here by the comment count, the community of Deltarune does what they do best, and not do what they do best. They have other things that are best at, but anyway, does one of the things they're good at, and they actually joined in on the fun, and thanks to them, a huge shout out to all of them, by the way. I may not mention all of them by name because, again, I might mispronounce them, but again, thanks to them, I have some other parts of this theory, add-ons, similar theories and all of that I'm going to try and discuss now. The first one I want to discuss is this top comment by Charlotte Epic Sauce. They mention how this creepy phone calls Chris gets, they might be connected to the memory heads, because, again, when the amalgamates are involved, memory heads are also probably involved. Let me drink water for a second. Anyway, the memory heads, we can only hear them properly once we use the cell that Toriel uses. So yeah, that was again, I say this here, but like, that's uh, that was a very like convincing piece of supporting evidence. Like, not, it may not be like uh, again, none of this is like has a main evidence as of this point, but like all of these like seem to be like very solid secondary evidences to that being an amalgamate. And also I would like to point towards another thing that the user sheep 4 mentioned here, is that GUI, the enemy from chapter 4, yeah, this enemy, they mention all these three monsters, Crystal, Mutler, and Shera. All three of them are mentioned by Kui. So again, that's another connection, that's being suddenly established. This last one about Shera, by the way, about them howling, the Kui howling hauntingly, is another thing that another user pointed out to me. Let me see if I can find it somewhere here, I believe. Yeah, this Sharon's sister being involved could explain the roaring that the Knight does. Also in this thing, here they roar and a lot of bullets comes out, and that's not like fully similar, but somewhat similar to something that Sharon does during Undertale. Her bullet patterns, they're just musical notes that are controlled by her voice. So a potential connection there too. And again, and that's all the like theories that that the first, they are the supporting evidences that these users have kindly presented to me, for my theory. I feel like this is a solid theory. So now, like, let us get into some other things that some of the commenters here have presented. Holy Himejoshi, I believe, Himejoshi, they say that they have a similar idea, but with missing people in the hometown. Missing people, so I'm assuming that they just mean that instead of the graveyard monsters, that their theory was that the amalgamate was made of missing people in hometown, which like my only criticism with that is that no one mentions people missing in the hometown, other than Undane, which I will be getting into later. But some of them, uh, again, some of them also like have some counterpoints. They think it's not actually a rule, and that it might be tears. The dueling spirit is one of the only spirits where they have visibilized. But my counterpoint to that is that moments after that, like, we can see the knight's visor, and like the knight is smiling and not doesn't seem to be crying at all. So like, what would the tears even be? Why would it be tears? Like, and also the visor is like sort of like the mouth, as we see in chapter 4. So like, the knight was basically smiling seconds after that. So you know I don't personally buy the thing that they were crying. So there's that. Anyway, this user Tidal Wave asks how the knight would be carrying Undane in the light world. And my like theory to that is that, like, when I say determination is injected to make the amalgamate, I don't mean like dark world determination like Gerson. I mean just like Gastro, who had made that amalgamate, just spray painted some determination on the dust of the monsters, and made the amalgamate in the. And we can see in Undertale again, amalgamates can exist in the light world. So theoretically, you know the if an amalgamate was in Deltarune, they could do the same. Also, yeah, the way I worded that here, like the image of a Gaster having a spray bottle of determination is like Yeah, that's hilarious, by the way. Yeah, I agree with that. Sandbag, the user sandbagger, um, they mentioned the possibility that whoever is working with the Knight, so Carol, Chris, all of them, they're keeping deaths alive by sacrificing other monsters and adding their dust to an object, and keeping her alive. Again, they mentioned the how like Shaira, they say Shairan here, but you can, it's Shaira. Uh, you know, again, she was alive during the Susie tutorial flashback. Again, I mentioned that. Here, this is where I started seriously considering the possibility that Shaira was involved. Anyway, they think that the Shaira, they have another reason for thinking that Shaira was involved in the Knight's making, and that was because one of the Knight's attacks seems to be, somewhat similar to one of the attacks done by Lemon Bread, the which of course like Shaira was in all, Shaira in Undertale was a part of Lemon Bread, so like there's a connection there. They think that yeah, this attack and the one of the attack Knight does, where they split the screen and a bunch of teeth like things and teeth like things come out. That is similar to like this attack. And like yeah, I agree. Like there is some visual similarities here, and also like messing with the screen in general. That's like all that has always been an amalgamate, associated thing to me. Anyway, and here I ask them whether their theory is like that they are murdering hometown residents or whether they are just grave robbing. Their idea is that initially it was just grave robbing, but it then turned into like out of like out of desperation they then started killing them. They also theorize that the police sacrifice we see with Undyne, at some point the Knight might just absorb her as well, to stay alive. Anyway, that was Sandbagger's theory, and honestly, this one is like very amazing as well. Like I like the idea of that, and here the user bruh uh, numbers, they mention how they find it very unlikely that DT would be studied because like determination in Undertale, it was only ever studied because Alphys needed a way to break the barrier on Asgard's order, so she went into studying determination. But since there is no need for that in Deltarune, obviously, so why would someone try to find determination? And my answer to that is simple, like yeah, like in Undertale there was a reason, but we see in Deltarune that there are books on souls. So the scientific community in Deltarune definitely also has curiosities about determination just in general. So someone might just pursue it out of scientific curiosities, like say Gaster. We know Gaster probably was involved in the making of the DT extractor in Undertale, so he might be associated with that in Deltarune too. Not to mention that again the again determination was like you know determination is also involved in making the dark fountains. So like, and we can pretty and we can safely assume that Gaster is involved with dark fountains. So him having to study dark fountains would inevitably lead him to also try and find something about a determination too. Like that would inevitably happen to someone if they're studying about the dark worlds. So they also point out how like they doubt whether an amalgamate would be formed because like monsters seem capable of you know handling more determination in their body in Deltarune. I have two counterpoints to that. One is one which I commented here is that the Knight seems more relatively stable than the amalgamates. Then the amalgamates weren't able to cooperate enough to actually do anything in Undertale. They were just like all of their attacks were basically them just lashing out. The Knight's attacks and their actions seem a lot more deliberate. Also the second one is that, like, yeah, even if monsters' bodies are able to handle more determination, like, you know, I'm not talking about the monsters' bodies here. I'm talking about the dust that would be formed later on. So a little difference there. So there's that. Nice GIF slash GIF, by the way. I don't know how to pronounce it. GIF. I'm just going to say GIF because you know I don't want to offend either side of the crowd. Anyway, the user Kyren also suggests that instead of just being an amalgamate, it's basically an amalgamate suit, like the Venom suit in Spider-Man. Like they basically have a suit and they cover it with dust, and someone who is actually alive, like say Papyrus or Death or whoever, is actually wearing that suit, in order to get the strength of those monsters. And that's a very interesting thing, you know. And like again, they also think that determination is involved because, like, it's Undertale. Determination is going to be involved some way or the other. Like initially, I think there was some debate about whether fountains had, actually involved determination. They are not in fountains too. Like determination is just everywhere. It just makes sense for determination to be involved. And again, the whole point with Gerson, like he basic one of the things that his characters, one of the things that he did as a character was establish the fact that monsters can come back to life in Deltarune, as darkness. So like just come back by determination in general. So that thing has to be expanded on at some point, because obviously, and again, sorry for that, my throat is not proper. My point is that Gerson laid out this plot point about monsters coming back to life. That has to be utilized in some other way at some point in the story, like that. And the amalgamates too, by the way. The amalgamates in Undertale were barely utilized as, like, I feel like, other than Fluffy and the True Lab, they were barely like the thing about I just feel like it was lost potential in Undertale. So it having even more relevance in Deltarune, I feel like is just I just feel like it's just proper that it would have even more significance in Deltarune. So anyway, with all of that, I think that that's all I have to say. I discussed about the things that everyone added to this theory, about the criticisms, about how the criticisms, the bird. This user again says that the other than the bird aspect, this does not have too much evidence, and I'm inclined to, like, yeah. But like when it comes to Knight, at this point we have basically like nothing that explains this part particularly. Yeah, the thing where they don't hurt Chris, all of that obviously, like, points towards one of the holidays and all of that. But as to how they do all of this, that particular thing, I feel like, other than this amalgamate theory, basically no other theory like explains any of that. So again, so that's my theory and on how all of that works. And thanks to the community, I was able to like expand on it. I got to see other people's take on this theory. I saw others, like Sandbagger here, who expanded it to a very interesting degree, where they are keeping deaths alive by sacrificing other monsters. So yeah, thank you for everyone who commented on this theory, and thank you everyone for watching this video. If anyone wants to further discuss this theory, present some counterpoints, present some arguments, present even more supporting evidence like Charlotte Big Sauce and let me scroll down, and Sheep 4 did, you are welcome as well. You can like do all of that either on Twitter. I'm going to leave the link link to a link in the description. You can do it on YouTube, like comment on my video. You can even do it on Reddit, where I normally post these videos. So you are welcome to do all of that. So anyway, thank you for watching and bye for now.